Hello, everybody. Episode 15 of Bardown Beauties, presented by SoStick.com. We're back. We're here, still giving you the content that you crave, even though there's still no sports. Day 14, day 15 of no sports.
I've stopped counting. It's just making me sad. I just wake up and I'm like, just another day with no sports. It's fine. Everything's fine.
It's just terrible. I'm slowly losing my mind.
Yeah.
We're trying this new Zoom video, so that's fun, right?
Yeah.
It's cool.
We're trying to bring some excitement to our life, so that just means experimenting with ways to record our podcast right now, and that's fine. It's
exactly.
fun.
We'll be joined by Tom Chorske shortly in our guest segment here. He was fantastic, so be sure to tune in. And then we've got everyone's favorite Dear Diary with Alexis, which is epic. So that'll be in segment 3. But right now, again, not a whole lot going on. Tiger King. I asked you guys to watch Tiger King with me. Did you succeed in doing so?
I have not tuned in yet, but I will. Like I have not watched 1 minute of Netflix since this whole quarantine thing started.
That's just impressive.
I've been reading, I've been doing all of that, a little bit of crying here and there, I've been filling my time. I just haven't watched any Netflix, so I'll jump on board with that. I actually have seen a million people talk about it on social media. It looks pretty funny, so I'll definitely give it a shot.
It's pure insanity. It's so unhinged that I kind of felt like I needed to shower.
That's why I feel like I'd like it, because I feel like there's just no actual storyline here, and it's just kind of madness.
And I'm more almost concerned, how did I not know about this man? It feels like it was a fairly big deal. And
I've heard there's a girl named Carol who's kind of wacko. I don't know. I feel like I'll enjoy it.
I love
how many are you in? How many episodes?
I finished. We finished in a night.
Finished?
Mike and
I.
Oh,
is it one season or what?
It's
7 episodes.
7 episodes.
Okay.
But it was funny because we just on a whim, we put the kids to bed and we're like, oh, well, let's check it out. And then we couldn't turn it off, you guys. I was like, oh my God, I need to go to bed. It's midnight, but I need to know what happens to Joe Exotic.
I'll check it out.
I'm 3 in. I got my wife to watch the very first one last night, and I told her, first 5 minutes, you're just gonna go, what? Wait, what?
What is this?
What? And then the next episode, and then the next episode keeps getting crazier.
It's just new madness. Yeah,
I've seen some great memes, and I want to be in on the memes. So if anything, I'm gonna watch it so that I can understand the memes.
I was just gonna bring that up. My favorite meme, and I think you guys, was day 14 of no sports. I'm watching a gay zoo manager with straight men with tigers and meth, and I'm like, yes, that's exactly what is happening.
If I'm going to sum it up, it's just one word. That's all I've got. It's Oklahoma.
So Oklahoma, right?
We probably have some listeners in Oklahoma. I have some family in Oklahoma, and I've dated somebody from Oklahoma.
No disrespect.
Fred's covered the gamut.
It is Oklahoma turned up to 11. It is just crazy.
It feels like if this happened in Florida, sure, I would, I understand that.
They wouldn't even make a TV
part
show
of
about it.
Florida. Yeah.
What happens in Florida?
Insane. There was a little bit. So in between Tiger King, there was
enough about tigers. Let's talk about hockey.
There was some news. Summer Olympic Games canceled, which I know that's obviously not hockey directly, but it could impact then the Winter Games as that kind of correlates. It'll be kind of interesting. The NHL Scouting Combine, Award Show, and Draft all postponed. Those were all scheduled to start up in June. So it's kind of interesting. It's not surprising, right? And I think it's one of those weird situations is there's no protocol for any of this and what you're supposed to do and how long this is going to really drag out. And I think it looks almost irresponsible to assume that things are going to continue on and, you have to cancel them as they come up. But it's crazy because, again, those are all happening in June and that's a ways away, it feels like.
I think there's two things behind this. One is that you don't want to be that organization, that person that decides they're going to host something and then something goes wrong, because then everyone's going to point their finger and say, why didn't you just shut it down? Why didn't you just cancel it? Sure. Could it have been hosted and everything went fine and everyone was healthy and safe? Yes, that's a possibility.
Right.
We could even do that now and people could be safe. There's just no way to know. But you don't want to be that one person that something bad happens and then everyone's pointing their finger and saying you shouldn't have done that. So that's probably part of the reason they did it. The other reason too is that things to this level of planning and organization and the amount of people involved, they don't want to wait until the last minute to cancel, because that's just, you know, they don't want to spend weeks and months planning something that's going to end up being canceled when they can use their resources and time elsewhere. And you don't want to, you know, get everyone thinking that this is going to happen and then a week beforehand have to be like, now we're going to cancel it, because there's people who have to travel for this. There's so much that goes behind it. So to me, it's just like a better safe than sorry kind of thing, not necessarily a like it's still going to be like this in June kind of thing. I hope not. And I don't know. I mean, nobody knows, but I think it's just people trying to play it safe, kind of going with the flow at this point. No one wants to be the one fish swimming out of the stream. Everyone's just kind of doing what seems safe. And as everyone has been saying, you know, better to have done all of this and have everything turn out okay and have people be safe than to just kind of like fly by the seat of your pants and just hope nothing bad happens. So it sucks because it's just another canceled thing and another thing that, you know, you look forward to that's not going to happen, but it is what it is. And at this point, it's kind of like you almost just expect it to happen for the things going on in the next few months. So
well, like you said, I mean, I can't remember who had directly quoted it or exactly the quote that it was, but it was like, it's better to look back on this and say we overreacted than not, right? Like it's a lot better to say, yep, okay, maybe we went a little crazy, maybe we did, you know, but it's going to it'll be worse if we don't, you know. At the end of the day, that's what I think everyone has to realize. I mean, it's hard and it's not easy and it's a lot of anxiety. I know for me, it certainly has felt like, God, I just want to return to like a normal routine, right? Like I'm not good at vacations, believe it or not. I'm always busy. I'm not good at just like chilling. So I can do it for like a week or two and that was fine. And I was enjoying it. I was like, yeah, this is the life. And I put pants on today. And now I'm like, oh my God, I need to like have my normal routine. I need to like be working or I need to be doing something or I need to doing anything that's not eating and
sleeping
in my mind. Yeah. I literally go to bed so I don't eat. Like that's
literally like, I went to bed at like 10:30 last night. I'm like, I have nothing else to do. I guess it's time for bed. Like,
I know.
But my sister asked me the other day, she's like, cause I'm someone who values my like relaxation time. Like I like to have things to do, but I also am not someone who can be on the go like 24/7. Like I need time to unwind.
Yeah, that's me.
Like,
that's me.
So my sister was like, aren't you like loving just sitting around in your pajamas doing nothing? I'm like, part of the reason that I love my relaxation time is knowing I worked so hard and finally getting a chance to relax. It's, you know, it's like, I don't want to sit around 24/7 and do nothing. That's not fun. I like knowing like I put in a full days of work and I worked really hard or I was up late working. And then the next day I get to relax or whatever it may be. That's part of what makes relaxing so fun is knowing you put in the work to feel relaxed when you do relax. So yeah, for me, the routine thing I think has been the hardest to adjust to because it's just like, I'm someone who once I get in a routine, I do that like endlessly. Like unless my routine absolutely has to change, I'm going to keep doing what I do. I'm going to keep going to the places I go to and seeing the people I see. And I think just waking up and like not having anything to do or nowhere to go, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like what should I do? Like, so yeah, I think the routine thing is definitely the hardest. And because, you know, once you get into a routine, it's like you don't even think about it. And then once it's gone, you're like, wait a second, like I can't do that anymore. I can't go see that person or can't go to that place. And it's very strange. Yeah.
No, I crave that structure. And it's funny because I mentioned this to my therapist before all of this had shut down. Right. And I had 4 jobs and the kids, and I was just insane busy, right? Which again, that's I thrive in that environment. It's not healthy, but I do. And I was talking to her and she was like, well, you know, maybe you need a break. I'm like, but I can't. I have to keep going. Like I've got all this, it's hockey season. It's just a couple more months. I just have to put my head down and get through it. And then I feel like I broke the world because then literally like 2 days later, it shut down. I was like, oh, I have like the time now, but oh no, like I didn't need all this time. I felt terrible. And so I laugh about that because it was literally like 2 days prior where I was like, oh God, it's just going to get crazy. I think the Wild are going to make the playoffs. So it's going to go a little bit longer and yada, yada. And then it's like, nope, just kidding. You can stay home. We can relax. The world's broken.
It's a strange combination of like mental relief and mental stress because part of me is like, okay, like I haven't had this amount of time to relax since I was, I don't know, 16, 17, like, you know, the last 5 years of my life, I've been at school, working, doing this, doing that. And it's like, you don't think about, and you know, like you and Fred have kids, like your life is just, once you get older, you just get into routine and you're so busy all the time, no matter what you do for work or what your family situation looks like or whatever it is. And so you kind of get used to it. And there is definitely days where you're like, I need a break. Like I need a day off of work or I need to go do something to get my mind off things. And so this whole stretch of not working, not going out, not seeing people has been so strange, because there's days where I'm like, oh, it's nice. Like, I don't have anywhere I need to be. I can sit and relax. I can, do whatever. And then there's other days where I'm just stressed, where I'm like, I need to go do something. I need to go see somebody, and I can't. And so it's a weird, it's kind of like this in between. I don't know. It's every day is different. Every time I talk to somebody, they're like, how you doing today? Like, what you got going on? I'm like, today is good. Yesterday I cried for 5 hours. Go check back tomorrow. I'm not really sure what tomorrow's going to look like. So it's strange. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's weird. We'll get through it. They've been doing Zoom calls with different NHL players. There'll be a Central Division one, I believe, on Tuesday that I will hop on. So that'll hopefully feed my anxiety of not doing anything work related. So, I mean, that's definitely helpful. And again, I think everyone's just trying to figure it all out. I'm still trying to learn hockey. So if you guys can send me your training videos, it's been fun. When it's an excuse to get outside, it's an excuse to do something. So certainly.
I've been going on walks. People, listen, I don't exercise. I don't go, I don't do anything physical unless I absolutely have to. Like, sometimes I get tired going up the stairs. I've been going on walks just so I can see the sun. Yes. I've been so happy to see strangers. Like, everyone I walk by, I'm like, oh my God, another person. I'm so excited. Like, it's a crazy time. I don't know what's happening, but maybe this is the beginning of a new me. Maybe I'm going to be a walker now, like one of those people with the little fanny packs and walking along, swinging their arms. I don't know. Maybe that's the new me.
It's very strange. On that note, we're going to take a break here, but before we
never come back.
Alexis is done.
Just end the podcast. We don't know how to come back from that.
So you keep your fanny pack over there, please.
I do have a fanny pack, actually, though.
I do too. I actually have a beer fanny pack. Like, it holds beer. It's like beer holster. I'm a classy broad.
Yeah.
I am a classy broad. But we're going to take a quick break before we get to our guest segment, Tom Chorske. Before we do that, I want to give a shout out to SoStick. They are partnering with McGolden Light. We talked about this last week, how they have this new line with McGolden Light. But even more importantly, a portion of their sales will be going to the USBG Charity Foundation, which provides assistance to bartender emergency program, because again, there's so many people affected by this. So many jobs, are reliant on being open businesses and restaurants and bars and all of that stuff. So really great that SoStick and McGolden Light are partnering to help put some of the donations and make a donation to them. And those that are financially impacted during this time. So it's $8 per shirt, $10 per hoodie will be donated, and that fundraising effort will continue until April 24th. We'll be pushing out more information on that on our social media channels and on that initiative. So big stick tap to McGolden Light and SoStick for helping out some folks and doing the best that they can and giving back while they can. As always, support them. They are a small business, a great business, a lot of love to us. They've got some Bardown Beauty tees still available, so be sure to check out online. Slap down that Bardown Beauties code at checkout for free shipping. And we love you. Love you, SoStick.
Yeah, shout out SoStick. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. And we'll be right back. Joining us now, our special guest, Tom Chorske, Stanley Cup winner, FSN color analyst, a dad, and former 16th overall draft pick. Tom, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good, Jesse. It's a pleasure to be doing something semi-professional today with you guys and to be on the Bardown Beauties.
Hey, we're happy to have you. You're officially a beauty now. How's it feel?
I love it. Honored. Feel honored.
How are you holding up amidst all of this crazy, chaotic world? I mean, what a time to be alive. How are you doing over there?
Yeah, it's, I think little by little trying to find the positives in this shutdown. We have a family of 5, so 3 kids, teenagers, 18, 17, and 13, soon to be 14 and soon to be 19, I guess. But we are, from that standpoint, it can be a little squirrely at times. And then other times we find ourselves, crushing Netflix together and and doing some other, dinners together. So that part's been good. And between all of us friends here, I've snuck out a few times. I've got a friend who has an office space, and I'm in the office right now. So yeah. I'm able to get away. And sometimes I'm doing phone calls, stuff, business from my truck. So that's kind of the mobile office, which you can go park somewhere and put the windows down and just, take phone calls or make phone calls. So trying to get by.
I know, it's great. You need those escapes. What Netflix binges do you have to recommend for us?
Well, my son, it's my kids and wife that pull me into them typically. And Better Call Saul right now is one that my son pulled me into. And my wife and I had watched Breaking Bad prior, so it makes sense to get involved with that one. And then Shooter is another one that we've been watching. My younger son got into it. So I've got kind of a few different shows going with different people in my family. So my wife is on to Ozarks right now.
Yeah, I've heard good things about that show.
Season dropped yesterday, or is it today? But yeah,
today I think, or last night. I don't know. The days are running together.
I know.
Can't figure it out. But no, that's what's kind of going on the Netflix front, and again, trying to do other things that are professional. I had hinted to you that I might have something in the works on the job front, and it hasn't quite come to fruition yet, but it could come to fruition, and I guess I won't leak it here and now. But,
we'll wait your official announcement.
It'll be hockey related and on a business side of things, but it's not NHL related. I'll go that far.
Sure.
Well, let's keep talking hockey, because that's what we do here, and it'll keep people's minds off of the crazy world we're in right now. Let's talk about your hockey life. What was hockey like in MSP when you were there, and how do you kind of try to reignite a resurgence?
It was great when I was there, and at the time there were 10 teams around around Minneapolis, the Minneapolis Conference, and I really I looked up to the kids playing varsity, primarily in our neighborhood, which was West High School, and then I moved over to Southwest High School, and they had historic teams and kind of legendary players, and so. On top of the local kids, I also knew and was aware of varsity players that were going D1, say when I was a Bantam or a Pee Wee. And so the whole hockey, I guess, community in Minneapolis was kind of a big deal to me. And there were some players that were making it over to play for the Gophers, and that was a goal of mine when I was younger. And then our rivalries were so great between high schools, and we were so compact. All being, in the Minneapolis Conference. And like I said, there were 10 of them. And, at the time, probably 5 of them in any given year were pretty good. And 3 of them were really good. And those were the nights that were a lot of fun. But we had our games at Augsburg Ice Arena. Early on, we played at the old Minneapolis Auditorium. I'm dating myself a bit, but those were fun too, because they'd stack up games back to back to back. And you'd arrive at your game and you could watch the game before you, which was 2 teams from the conference, and then you'd stick around afterwards and you'd watch some of the following games. And so just a unique way to grow up around the game and the sport. And obviously it drove my passion.
Absolutely. And inaugural Mr. Hockey, what was that like? And did you realize that it would mean so much to the state and become what it really has now?
At the time, it meant a lot to me to be recognized as the state's top player. I joke, it was just kind of timing that be the first it becomes a trivia question. But it is, at the time, the reason it was an honor for a couple of reasons. One, it's, obviously we weren't called the state of hockey at the time, but the state of hockey, I guess, culture still existed then. And being labeled as the state's best high school player was an honor and something that was pretty cool to me, because I just loved the sport and loved hockey in Minnesota. Second of all, Herb Brooks was the one that presented me with the award. And third of all, there was like John Mariucci was at the head table, Larry Ross, another great coach. And so all of a sudden this award, and it was at the time it was sponsored by Coca-Cola. So there was like stacks of Coke all around this banquet room, and we stood in front of a Coca-Cola backdrop. And so it felt kind of like the big time. And it has gone on and continued to be a pretty prestigious, I think, recognition, which is cool.
Well, and hockey wasn't the only sport that you participated in growing up. You were a multi-sport athlete growing up. And what do you think, how important is that to be a multi-sport athlete? It seemed like for a while that people were going away from that and kind of doing year-round training for one particular sport. And now it seems to be getting a little bit more back to that. What's your take on that?
Yeah, good question. We've always, tried to encourage our kids to play other sports and multiple sports. And I think I think it's better for your athleticism, even if you're not playing a varsity sport. Like our older son didn't play basketball as a varsity sport. He happens to be 6'6", so he loves it anyway, but he played a ton in the driveway and a ton with his friends. He did play tennis in high school, so he was a multi-sport athlete too. But going back when I was growing up, it was just kind of a thing that athletes did. And again, schools were, they needed players to come out and play for other teams to basically field a team. And so if you were a pretty good athlete, the football coach would come and talk to you, or, you know, or some other sport. And, you know, now one of the things that's a little unique, and our kids go to Edina High School, and at Edina High School anyway, it's hard to be a multi-sport athlete just because every single sport has kids that are specializing in that sport, right? You might want to go out for soccer just because you like playing soccer, but you can't make the team if you're just a recreational player.
Sure.
So it's harder to be a multi-sport athlete. And I would think the same is true at Minnetonka and Eden Prairie and Wayzata and all these really big schools. You know, some kids just can't play a second sport because they want to do it for fun, I guess. But
right.
I do think you need to be a good athlete, to be a good hockey player, if we're going to compare it to hockey. You need to do other sports and use different muscles. And if you can get on a different team, it's really good, because I think it adds to the way you think about strategy. I think it adds to getting coached by someone different with a different voice and maybe a different style. And so the more I think kids get exposed to different sports and different coaches, and when they can, I think it helps. But these days, you do have to start to specialize. If you know, again, we're talking about hockey. At some point, you know, whether you're 16 or somewhere in that area, start specializing. So if you do want to play at a higher level.
Right. Absolutely. And I think, you know, you need that break too. You had said switching sports is just, I think, especially for these young kids, to expect them to do that. I mean, certainly specialize as it gets older. I know I do a lot of work with Minnesota hockey, and we're always trying to stress that, like, it's not going to hurt your development. It'll hurt more if you're focusing on just one sport, right? Like, you just need, Anders Lee always comes to mind. And you look at all of these athletes that are excelling in the NHL, most of them played more than one sport and were good in every aspect of that too.
Well, when you're really young too, you don't necessarily know what might be your sport yet. Like, you might like playing hockey, but maybe you're better at soccer. Maybe you like baseball, but you're better at football. Like, when you're so little, like, it's so important to try those different things. And then, as you said, Tom, once you get a little bit older, it's better to start specializing, because that could become your career if you really are that good. But it's so important, I think, to try at least some other sports, and maybe something will click.
Absolutely. And parents, sometimes, especially in Minnesota, and again, I guess I'm influenced or biased by what I see around our community, but parents sort of generally feel like, oh, hockey's so important. I got it. My kid, I got to push him in hockey, or get him into hockey, and then make him good at hockey, or make her good at hockey. Otherwise, won't have any social status. But so you got to avoid those pressures. But I think it's the same in dance and other sports too. There's craziness in every activity. But trying to sprinkle kids around to different sports when they're younger is the way to go.
Absolutely. And I mean, you like you said, you've got your kids' state tournament. Talk about how exciting it was to witness them in the tournament and doing their thing and reveling in that as a dad.
Yeah. For a guy that really wanted to play in the state tournament and never got to play in the state tournament, it was kind of a thrill. So I was living vicariously through them at that point. But to tell you what it's like from our side, you see your kids, they've worked hard, they've trained hard, and then they've achieved or made the varsity team. And then obviously around here, getting to the state tournament is what it's all about for hockey players. And as you mentioned, I had a daughter that has played in 3 straight tournaments, and a son that played in 2. He got injured in the second game right away in his junior year, but the senior year they were able to win the championship, and the girls won that year too. So I was doubly blessed with state championships in the family. And we weren't the only one. There's a Jungles family that had done it, and a few other families in Edina had siblings on teams. And so I'm not trying to say I was some sort of a unicorn or anything, but
right.
It's really cool when your kids but it's like all they want is to win the state championship, and to see them both get to do it was really cool. And again, in Minnesota, we have this unique hockey platform that it's, kids that they've grown up with their whole life. Certainly on the boys' side, there were, I think, 12 seniors that had grown up in Edina, and they had played on different teams over the course of the year, but such a bond between a large group of senior students that, that was their goal, and they accomplished their goal, and they knew that they'd never forget it. And so you get to stand there and, I guess, be proud of them. But for me as a hockey player as well, I was really happy for them to see them accomplish something that they were really hoping to accomplish.
Well, yeah, let's talk about your hockey life a little bit, because before your kids' hockey life, it was just your hockey life. Now you get to share it. But Gopher Hockey Domination, you returned after being cut from the U.S. Olympic squad. Then after your NHL career, you returned to finish your degree at school. So why was that important to you to kind of go back and get that degree? A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't want to do that. Why did you find it important to do it?
A couple reasons. Well, and first, my kids don't want to hear about my career so much. They start tuning me out when I try to tell them that.
We're here to listen to you.
Thank you. That's why I came on. I had to talk about myself. I can't do it at home. So when I was a junior, eligibility wise as a Gopher, and had finally decided that. And I had taken a year off that Olympic year, as you mentioned, to try out. And so my class was graduating. I had been drafted highly by the Montreal Canadiens. It was just kind of time for me to start and try my NHL career. And so when I was telling my parents that I was thinking this is going to be the time I'm going to leave, I'm going to sign a contract, one of their stipulations was, you got to promise us you'll go back to school.
That sounds like some parent advice.
Yeah.
It's parenting, and it's good advice, I think. Yeah. First of all, I'd gone for 3 years. I'm 1 year away from getting my degree. Second of all, it's a parent's job to kind of advise their kid on having a backup plan.
Yeah.
This might not work out, and in athletics, right? You could have a career-ending injury on day one.
Yeah.
So the plan was to get that degree. And then second of all, I played at a time, I made a great living while I was playing. I cashed that last check 20 years ago. And when I got done, you kind of know, you're like, oh, I got a nice little nest egg, but that's, and I didn't even have kids at the time, and I knew I'm going to have a family and blah, blah, blah. And I was 20 or early 30s, and you figure even if you're going to live to be 80 something, that's 50 years, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm going to have to work is another driving factor. And at that time, more so maybe than now, you needed a degree to kind of just legitimize yourself and justify getting interviewed or sending in your resume. These days it's still a kind of a requirement, but I think we live in a world these days that you can, if you're entrepreneurial enough and have the wherewithal or some other type of skill, you can make a living without it. And maybe we're headed in that direction a little bit more, but I had promised my parents I would do it, and I knew I was going to have to hand a resume over the desk to someone, and it was going to have a degree on it. So that's kind of what was driving that.
That had to have been a pretty proud moment then for you once you did finish it, right? A little bit too?
Yeah, it is. I think because I can hang that frame over my desk or whatever, and there, at that time, I don't know if it's still the same, but there's that kind of a stereotypical dumb jock or dumb hockey players, and sure. So I could say, hey, I got my degree, and I'll tell you another thing is if I am speaking to kids and teens and youth groups, their parents certainly appreciate it. They're like, wow, thanks for mentioning that you went back and got your degree, because now my son or daughter will really know that it's important, and you did it, they can do it, and it's something. So, I think it's just an accomplishment that, all of us probably feel pretty proud the day we get that degree.
But even more proud, a Stanley Cup champion. How amazing did that feel? I mean, talk about that team and your time with the Devils and getting the ultimate prize.
Yeah, that was, it was amazing. And especially I guess I wasn't continuing to, I was playing because I wanted to play in the NHL and try to win a Stanley Cup. But, and I talk about this, if I give a little talk to a group of people, but, having been cut by the Olympic team was one setback. And then later that year, even, or less than 12 months anyway, lost the national championship in overtime playing for the Gophers. Mm-hmm. And so those were two major setbacks of basically things that I had on my bucket list that I had failed to do, and I couldn't go back and fix it. So winning the Stanley Cup was not only a lifelong dream come true, but it kind of eased the pain of those two setbacks and those two failures. But maybe those setbacks did drive me, and I do remember leaving college thinking I'm going to prove to the people that cut me from the Olympic team, or going back to college and then moving on, that I was a good enough player, and I was going to prove them wrong, I guess, to a degree. But winning the Stanley Cup was amazing, obviously, because it's surreal when the buzzer goes off and you realize that you've won it. Your hockey life kind of flashes before you. It's not just like, hey, we set this goal this year and we accomplished our goal. I've been thinking about this since I was a kid, mm-hmm. and all the years of playing, and all the days and nights of practicing and playing, and probably driving in the cars, and your parents, tying your skates when you were 5, and going to all your games when you're in high school and college and all that. And they were at the game. And so all that kind of comes together as wow, this is a sort of huge thing that we just accomplished. And then the other part about it was, when I got to New Jersey, we were kind of middle of the pack team. And 4 years later, we won the championship. And I really took a lot of mental notes and was pretty present in the process of how we were evolving and getting better. All of a sudden we get this young rookie goalie named Martin Brodeur. He seems to be a really special player, and as young as he was a veteran on the ice and in his head. We had this leader in Scott Stevens who would just freight train guys, and then come back to the bench and kind of look you in the eye and say, let's go, get your act together. Or if you had any question whether or not I've got your back, now you don't. And then we had young budding stars like Brian Rolston and Bill Guerin and Scott Niedermeyer, players that maybe people didn't quite realize were going to be future, star players and elite
Brian
players.
Rolston was one of my favorite players growing up. I had his jersey when he played for the Wild.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it was because he was so hot. But, no, he could fly down the rink, and he had a big shot too. So yeah. I get it. And then we had some really amazing performances from Neil Broughton, who was one of my idols growing up. So that was a neat thing for me. Claude Lemieux, who everyone kind of hated as the world's biggest agitator, but for us, he was a leader. And for us, he that year he won the Conn Smythe, and he really got it done. And then went on to kind of become Mr. Stanley Cup as far as his performances in the finals. But yeah, an amazing experience to hold that cup over your head, and that Bobby Orr and John Bellevue and Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux, and there's all these names on it, and you set it down that night, and you're looking at it and drinking out of it, and it's an amazing party starter, I'll tell you that.
What did you do for your day with the cup? Did they do kind of the same type of stuff that they do now, where you did get it for? Yeah,
I got it for actually like a day and a half or 2 days, nice. Because Neil Broughton got it over in Wisconsin, and then sure. I think he spent like half a day with it, had a little barbecue, and then he said, "Yeah, I'm done with it." And so that's just kind of how Neil is. And I get a call from the Cup concierge, or the Cup chaperone, I guess, at the time, and it's not the same guy, who it is now. And he said, "Hey, I'm just across the river in Wisconsin. I can be at your house at like 6 o'clock. would you like me to head over now? And I said, absolutely, get over here. So my official day was the next day, but I got it in the afternoon the day before. And so I sort of had this found time with the Cup, and I went over to Bunny's Bar and Grill because their owner had entertained my parents. We didn't have satellite TV, so whenever I played or periodically, that's where they would go and watch the games. Was on Bunny's on their satellite. And so he said, hey, if you got a spare moment with the Cup, would you be willing to stop by? And I did, and walked in unexpectedly to this sports bar and grill, and there was softball teams and just kind of the regulars in there, and the place went crazy. They just couldn't, people can't believe. They're like, where did this come from? And why is the Stanley Cup here? And then the next day I had some things planned. I had a happy hour or a reception, if you will, at the Calhoun Beach Club that I had hosted for friends and family and relatives. And I joke that, and apparently for all of their friends and family and relatives, because the word got out, and it was a pretty crowded day there. And the mayor or one of the council members in Minneapolis was a friend of my parents, and they declared it Tom Chorske Day, I think, in Minneapolis. And I got a key to the city, and then we ran down to the Loon Cafe downtown, which was probably my major stomping ground, if you will, at the time. Spent too many nights there, but we had a big party there. They kind of shut the doors, and it was packed. And for another friend of mine had hired a photographer to follow us around and took a lot of pictures, which I still have, mostly in a box, but have some good memories and pictures from back then. And then I had also gone to Bloomington Ice Garden, who Denny May was the father of my line mate in high school, and he ran Bloomington Ice Garden for 36 years. He just recently passed away, sadly, but we stopped by Bloomington Ice Garden for him. I went on a K-Fan, or maybe it was called something else than K-Fan, but I showed up at a radio station and just whenever I needed a drink or food, we'd just bounce into a restaurant, and we were driving around in a Cadillac. John Johansson, a good friend, had let me. He had a big, huge Cadillac convertible, and so the Cup sat in the back of the convertible, and we drove around town in it.
I can't think of a better way to do it. I mean, that's how you do it, right?
Well, these days, I think guys, rent helicopters and fly to the top of mountains, or islands, and have, private parties with rock star bands. But at the time, that's what I did. But we had a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, that's what you work towards your whole hockey career. It's those championship games. It's those moments where you have a chance to win something, to prove something. And I think that's a tough part about what's going on in the world right now, is some of those opportunities are being taken away from these players who work really hard to get to these points in their career. And, you talked about, like, you didn't get a chance to play in the state tournament when you were a kid. Once that time passes, it's like you don't necessarily get a second shot at some of those things. The World Championships, one of those things that was canceled. And what do you think about that happening, as far as how that affects some of these players who are really looking forward to that, and some who might not get a chance to play in that again?
Yeah, Alexis, that's a good point. I just the other day, I don't know what kind of spurred it on, if I was clicking through the NHL network or what, but I was, for whatever reason, I hadn't really been thinking about it. But if you do stop and think about how amazing playoff hockey is, I mean, we're really missing out on amazing hockey, and it's just been getting better and better and better. And it's amazing that the players can take what's a really good product these days, which is fast and skilled, and turn it up a notch. And so playoff hockey is just, it's amazing to watch. And we all get, if you're a fan, you get so excited to get home at night and turn on the games and track those series. And all of a sudden it goes into a game 7, and game 7s are amazing. And that they go to overtime, it's even more exciting.
I get chills thinking about that.
I know you're going to make me cry.
Yeah. And I was lucky to play in, a few of those type situations. But yeah, for these guys right now, it'll be really interesting. Let's hope that they can get back and have some format of a playoff this year. If they can't, there's certainly going to probably be, like all of us in a lot of things, I think we're probably experiencing some gratefulness of, of things we took for granted. But there's going to be some players that, their career ends. I mean, let's think of, just off the top of my head, Mikko Koivu, right? Like if his career comes to an end right now, and he probably would have been a guy who, even if it was a bit of a long shot right now, they were aiming for the playoffs, and who knows, all he really wanted was a shot to try and get, to the cup, but there'll be other players too. So it's sad for the players that their careers are going to be coming to an end, and they won't ever get that shot. And maybe they were on a team that had a good shot. So that's really disappointing, and something that they'll have to live with and try to come to terms with. But what can you do? We're in a worldwide pandemic, and everything has come to a halt.
Well, and I think it's the unexpectedness of it that is going to be maybe the hardest for some of these players to handle. You think about the college players who had their careers cut short, those seniors who, you prepare yourself and that come the end of the season, this is going to be it. And then all of a sudden this happens and you're like, I already played my last game. That's it. I'm not going to get another chance. And for guys like Mikko Koivu, who, if they don't get a chance to resume play or do a playoff scenario, whatever it is, a lot of these guys, their seasons are done now and their careers are done. And I think, when you don't have time to prepare for it, it takes a little longer to almost get over it because you weren't ready for it. And I've been thinking about that a lot. I'm like, man, I can't imagine you dedicate your whole life to this. And then for some of these guys and girls, this is how their careers end. And it's hard to think about.
Yeah, it ended with no closure. They probably they'd trade, losing their last game over just waking up one day and having someone tell them, sorry, we're done. You're not going to wear that uniform anymore. When you think of like the college, you mentioned the college kids, so many of those athletes just loved pulling on that sweater, whatever sport it is. They love pulling on their college team jersey, and they didn't get to do it that one last time, really. And like I said, win or lose, when you're an athlete, you love your college team, and you love pulling on that jersey. And
well, not all of those college players are going to play at a higher level. For some of them, they weren't talented enough, or the opportunity didn't come, and that was it for them. And so some of them might not ever play hockey in that way again. Right. And so I think that's even more devastating, is the ones who aren't going to higher levels and competing again. That's got to be hard to swallow.
Yeah, for sure. And there's no solution to it, really. I was watching a sports technology conference online today. For the last 2 days I was spending some time doing it. It was kind of a cool thing. But Mark Cuban today was the keynote speaker, and one of the things he's doing, at least for graduates of seniors, he thinks there's going to be, I don't know if it's a whole tour or what, but there's going to be like this party for seniors that didn't get to do their senior graduation. So he's going to create like a celebration of like a group of bands, and it's obviously going to be debauchery probably, and a little bit of craziness, because he knows everyone's going to be like, they're coming out all cooped up. They didn't get to have their graduation. So it's going to be called like the graduation tour or something. And it's going to be like a Lollapalooza that comes through your town. And if you didn't get to do your graduation, this is your chance to celebrate with everyone else who didn't get to do it. It's a great idea. But my point is, like, athletes don't get to have their celebration that way.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, and it extends down to high school too, because you have spring seasons that were canceled, and if you're a senior in high school and that was your final moment, I mean, it's a tough situation. And you're right, there's no right way to go about rectifying any of that, right? Because you can't, do another year of eligibility, because that opens a whole new can of worms for things, and it's a crazy, chaotic, kind of a mess, frankly. It's unfortunate, because it's something that nobody's ever experienced. You don't know how to handle it. You don't know what to do. There's no protocol. There's no book to tell you how we get through this, except together and support one another, and find joy in some of those little things. One thing that you have helped find some joy is your Hockey Dads Challenge. I want to talk a little bit about that. Such a cool idea. Tell folks where the idea came from and what exactly it is.
Well, it's been just evolving kind of organically. My friend Zach Lampa and I, over a year ago November, found ourselves looking at this frozen lake with no snow on it, and thinking we could send a puck a really long ways. I wonder what the longest ice hockey pass is. And we found out through Guinness that no one had established the longest ice hockey pass. And so that back in, I guess, 2018, we talked to Guinness, and he had done a YouTube video up north. Well, I can't think of what lake he was on, but he did it up north with a friend. And so Guinness said, well, you got to do it longer than 260 yards or something like that. So we established the longest ice hockey pass, and Guinness was actually there, and we paid a little money to get him to recognize it and hand us a certificate. And we're in the book too, I suppose. And that was over 300 yards. And then this year we were like, hey, we should do something again. And when we were telling the story from that first one, we sort of were labeled at some point along the way as the hockey dads that broke this record, because we both have kids that play and whatnot. So now we kind of grabbed onto that. Now we're the hockey dads. And we did another video, this time without Guinness being there, and we didn't have any money to pay him or anything. So we just started our own sort of world records categories, and we did the longest ice hockey goal, and we did it over at the John Rose Oval. And that was about 300 feet, I think, as long as we could do it. We did a longest goal on a 6-year-old goalie, and we did the longest backhand pass. And we're talking of, and then we said, well, what can we do with this? And what are we trying to do with this? And we just sort of brainstormed that, we found it to be kind of fun to break a record. It's something you don't do every day, and our lives are not that exciting right now as hockey dads, right? You just kind of lose some of your younger identity and some of the fun things that you do. So, but I was like, that's kind of cool, set a record. And I said, it'd be kind of fun to do an event where maybe kids could attempt to break our record or set some of their own records. And so we just brainstormed and spitballed, and we came up, more recently after we did these videos and put them out there, that we were going to do a challenge. And our goal is to get some kids to sign up and do it for this summer. And we'll probably go back over to John Rose Oval. And, we figured you could do, most consecutive goals from the red line for the under, 10 age group, or most consecutive saucer passes over a bar. I mean, there's a lot of things you could do on just a standard indoor rink. You're not going to be able to do something that's 300 yards or 300 feet, but
yeah.
We just figured you can come up with some different categories and turn it into a little bit of a parking lot carnival stuff, maybe have some vendors and things like that. And then they could come in and try and set some records. And if we can hand out some certificates at the end of the day for kids that came down and tried it, or maybe they're the ones that set the record. And then if we figured if we charged a small fee to do it, we could then turn around and give that money to a charity. And so we could partner with the Hendrickson Foundation, or we could partner with Jack Jablonski's, Believe, or I guess I've got my Max Foundation. I recently did a pod with the Max Foundation, which is in the memory of Max Marvin, who unfortunately committed suicide, and they're out trying to spread awareness and do educational systems in schools, or educational programs. So we're still, it's a work in progress, but really the concept is, we had fun doing this record set. I guess we set records. We didn't break any records, but we had fun doing it. And we thought, it would be kind of fun to bring that sort of thrill or excitement to young kids. And then if we can raise some money while we're doing it, maybe there's something there. It's just we're kind of winging it right now, and we'll see where it goes. But, this stoppage and shutdown isn't helping, because we can't really promote doing a big activity with a lot of people. It's not really going over well
right now. Yeah. But the kids could still go out on their own, right? I think that's one thing that people are forgetting. Like, we're not, sports aren't gone. It's just, you just have to do a different way. You can still go out and play in your driveway. I've been out there learning to stick hand myself very poorly. But I think
Good
it's these challenges. Yeah. You haven't seen the video then. Apparently it's not great, Tom. It's
My
not
dad
great
suggested the other day, he goes, we should reenact the opening scene to Slapshot. And I'm like, why? And he's like, I don't know. I don't have anything better to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. I think that's what's so funny about this is like,
yeah.
again, nobody knows what to do. But you can just try new things and like you said, wing it and see what sticks and kind of have some fun.
Just have some fun with it.
Well, why don't you tell people about your podcast while we round this out here, because people are looking for things to do. So maybe we can introduce them to a new podcast here because you do your own thing. So why don't you tell people about that? Well,
that's really generous of you. Thank you. So I kind of I don't know how you guys got started or why you got started, but I said, I want to try this podcasting thing and just wing it or give it a try. And so I came up with Hawk Dish, a play on both hockey and hot dish, being a Minnesota or Midwestern delicacy. And a hot dish is also a variety of different ingredients, and that's what the Hawk Dish podcast is supposed to be. I originally started off with, I'm going to talk to hockey players, former hockey players, and then spin in kind of maybe what they're doing after hockey, whether it's a business or some other interesting element of their life. And so I've been on and off again with my consistency, but I've enjoyed doing it. And I've had some pretty interesting guests so far, including my colleague at FSN, Kevin Gorg. That was a pretty good one. Ben Hankinson, who's an agent and I played with at the U. Brian Lawton, another agent, and has been an executive, and obviously he's on the network. And so, those are some of the guests. And then I also have done a few episodes on mental health and mental wellness, and both with former NHL players. The Max Foundation was with Conway Marvin, who's kind of overseeing it on the director. He's one of the board of directors guys. And then there's a coach named Mark Wick, or former coach, who's going around and has talked to nearly 70 teams in the last year as a former Division III hockey coach who contemplated suicide. So that one has been, I guess I'm using the podcast lately for some of this mental health and mental wellness stuff. But I'm going to continue to probably go back, and I've got a couple in production, I would say. One with a skate fitting and stick fitting expert from General Sports. And then I've also talked to some trainers, some of the guys that have trained my kids or trained hockey players off ice. So it's a variety show, and I appreciate you asking. And I'm tuning into the Bardown Beauties a little bit more than I was before, because now you guys are up and running. You guys have had great guests too. So
we had
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's been fun.
It is. Yeah, like you said, we just kind of decided to wing it. We like talking hockey. Some people might enjoy listening to us talk hockey. I still don't know why, but I love it. But yeah, no, it's fun. You'll have to we'll keep an eye out to be sure to share your podcast once the next episode's released here.
You gotta wing it. You gotta try this stuff, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly. Well, Tom, thank you again for joining us. We loved having you on. You're officially a beauty. Congratulations. We'll definitely have you back on again.
Well, thanks for staying after me on this. It took a couple attempts, and it's been fun to do it on Zoom. But yeah, when things resume, we'll have to reconnect a little bit. So thanks, you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. And thanks again to Tom Chorske for joining us. Such a great guy, such a fun dude. I'm excited to hear his job leak news once it's ready and available. So that'll be great. Thanks again.
I need all the excitement in my life I can get.
I know, exactly. And now, again, we're figuring out music. We'll figure out music, Fred, for this, because it needs to have like a da 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 da. And now, everyone's favorite segment. Here's Dear Diary with Alexis.
It's a new year, and instead of sitting at the bottom, we're heading straight to the top. Watch out, Calgary. Just kidding. Calgary's not ahead of us.
And that's Dear Diary with Alexis. Again, thanks to Tom for joining us. Thanks to Fred for hitting the record. Thanks to Alexis for just being you, fanny pack and all. And thanks to SoStick for all of the love and support that they give us. Be sure to rate this podcast. Be sure to share with your friends. Be sure to subscribe. Subscribe is the word I was looking for.
She just adds 5 extra S's to the word subscribe.
S's are hard for me sometimes.
Yeah,
right?
it's tough.
And join Team Beauts. Be sure to chat with us, engage with us on social media. We'd love to hear from you. If you have story ideas or things that you want to promote, give us a shout, and we'll see what we can do. We'll be back again next week. Thanks, Beauts.
Bye, Beauts.